Hey, this is Matt once again. What about another video? There's another paid request, this time from Mike. A guy named Mike wanted me to do a commentary on Naked Lunch, David Cronenberg film. And I will do my best. It's been a long time since I've seen this. I do remember liking the film, although being very, very confused. And I think it'll be the same way. But for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. So, I have it pause at the beginning. 3, 2, 1, pressing play. And yes, this is the Criterion Collection. So it starts with the Criterion Collection. This is a 2-disc set. It's got pretty lengthy. I forgot Fox put this out. Be a very lengthy booklet which talks about Burroughs, the writer. I know David Cronenberg, he mentioned the opening credits were based on the works of Saul Bass and some of those old credits from way, way back in the day. Disc 1, you have a new high-def digital transfer approved by the director. You got a commentary with David Cronenberg and Peter Weller, although they're not in the same room. Then you have a little making of a London weekend TV documentary directed by Chris Radley. Audio recording excerpts from William S. Burroughs' Naked Lunch. Archival stills. 32-page booklet. There's this booklet here. You're getting pretty packed with stuff. Now, Naked Lunch, like I said, I can't really tell you what the... I mean, the basis is that Peter Weller is this guy who is a bug exterminator, and one thing leads to another. His girlfriend, his wife, they're doing this drunken game where, kind of like William Tell, he's going to shoot some glass off her head, but accident happens, the girl dies, he's got to run away, and then he's more and more into this fantasy world, which pretty much leads him to being a writer, and this sort of Burroughs' journey into becoming a full-fledged writer. And for I understand that if you actually did try to fully do the Burroughs book, it would cost a ton of money because there's a lot of effects work you would have to do, and I think Peter Weller said at the time you probably would have had to animate it. There's so much stuff, so it's more about this writer's journey to becoming a writer, William S. Burroughs. And I can't say I read any of William S. Burroughs' work. Now, David Cronenberg, this is a guy, takes place in New York City, 1953 there, where before this he had done films like Shivers and Scanners, and found even more success with the Stephen King adaptation of The Dead Zone, which I like, as well as the Fly. I would say The Fly is probably Cronenberg's biggest hit in 1986. Great year for movies to get Aliens, Big Trouble in Little China, and the like. Here we are, Peter Weller's character running out of spray with these roaches there. Yeah. Roaches, roaches everywhere. Everywhere you go, everywhere you live, seems like you always have roaches. But here he finds out he ran out of his bud powder, and he finds out that his woman is stealing it to use for drugs. Kind of interesting if you compare like William S. Burroughs to, say, Hunter S. Thompson. two seemingly different takes on drugs. Like, in a way, though, this would be kind of an interesting companion to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which is another trippy film about a writer with some really weird imagery. That'd be like a 1-2 punch, watching Naked Lunch and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Similarities in that case, but two pretty different experiences. But yeah, David Cronenberg, he was very successful with The Fly, and then after that, I think he did Dead Ringers. I think after that, he did this one. This was 91. 1991, that was a year of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, among many other movies. And this film did not do well at all. This film was a bomb. Flat out box office bomb. I think Roger Ebert gave it like 2 out of 4 stars or something. It wasn't completely beloved, but it definitely creates some kind of cult following to a point it got a Criterion. I don't know if this is on Blu-ray. I would assume it is, but I don't know for sure. And then he kind of started going away from the body horror aspect, where you had Crash, very weird movie about people who get into car crashes on purpose because it turns them on. And that had James Spader, Elias Koteas, among others. Yeah, a few other films. I think there was one called Spider. And that's when then began to do films like A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen and Eastern Promises. Now, he did go back to body horror with Crimes of the Future, but I thought that was a really lame movie. Like, this film, I may be confused by the plot, but it's still interesting. It's got a great cast. You got Peter Weller, you got Roy Scheider popping in, you got Ian Holm, he's going to pop in. I like Peter Weller as a lead. I don't know about him as a person, but I do like him as an actor. And then it does still fascinate me to try to learn what some of the details of the film are about. I like the color scheme. I mean, it's 1950s, but the color scheme, like, even of this whole place with this almost sickly green on the side there, and this is the cinematography. There's like almost like a warmth of lighting here. Weird warmth to it. Almost like fall colors. And that's his lady doing the drugs with the bud powder. But yeah, Crimes of the Future I was not a fan of. I mean, it wasn't even that big in a body horror type of movie. I mean, there was nothing that made me go, wow. It was more like, okay. Just seemed like an old hat. And just a very drawn out plot. And my stomach feels that way. Now, the lead guy here, Peter Weller, is an actor who, like I said, I've enjoyed. I mean, growing up throughout the years, the film, my personal favorite of his is Leviathan. This film here, this is my personal favorite of his. Love Leviathan, came out in 1989. Sadly did not do well, but I do love Leviathan. And then, you know, before he had done RoboCop in 87. There's Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. There was Of Unknown Origin, very underrated film. Came out around 1983, where he's this guy who's a prim and proper guy, climbing the corporate ladder, and then this nuisance of a rat is in this apartment complex, and this obsession starts where this thing that seems much smarter than the typical rat is just making his life a living hell and driving him crazy, and this battle emerges. It's a very interesting film. I really like Of Unknown Origin. And then same director would team up with him on Leviathan. He was in Shakedown with Sam Elliott. He was in 50/50, which needs a Blu-ray, with Peter Weller and Robert Hayes. That's a very fun action movie. 50/50. He was in Streamers after this. And, you know, he popped in other movies as well. More like straight-to-video movies. There's one he did called Detour with Robert Patrick. There's one he did with Brian Brown. I forget the name of it. One of the last big movies he was in that Star Trek Into Darkness movie. He was on this TV show that didn't last too long called Odyssey 5. It's funny because he seems more like, I guess if you pay him enough, he's more willing to do interviews, because, I mean, he even did, what, the KFC commercial, voicing RoboCop. He's like voicing RoboCop in like this low-budget video game. They finally got him to do the interview on that RoboCop documentary that's been in the works for like 7 years at this point. And Search of Tomorrow supposedly interviewed him for Leviathan, but then someone gave me a link to watch it. It wasn't in there. So if you want to watch it, it's just a clip they put on fucking YouTube. So I'm like, well, that's what a lying sack of shit. Like, that's one of the things you market, and then you fucking cheat people and be like, oh yeah, well, if you want to watch it, it's just all on YouTube. We just put the clip on YouTube. Oh, good, then I don't have to fucking buy your fucking thing. Waste of fucking space. Anyway. But again, I've heard stories he's not the most pleasant guy. I would say if I ever did meet him, I would ask him about Leviathan. Because no one asked him about Leviathan. Yeah, this is when the trippy stuff especially comes into play here. Really good practical effects. Like, really neat, well done practical effects. Now again, if you're trying to quiz me on what it all means, I don't know for certain. Pretty much these two cops have Peter Weller here and this bud powder, and they bring in a bud, and the bud just having the time of his life in this bud powder. But you're just really crazy, unique makeup effects. So his little bud is his case officer. I mean, what does this actually mean? Does this mean that he's just... he's imagining this because of all the fucking drugs here called bud powder? I mean, it could be cocaine, hallucinogens, however you want to put it. And, you know, this is what he sees, so maybe in reality he's talking to a person, but this is what he imagines. And that part of that imagination helps lead him into writing. Yeah, it's about the little bit of sexual thing there too. The way it's rubbing the hole. I'll just stick your finger up your ass. Now, for I understand, William S. Burroughs did really kill, whether on accident or not, his wife, in a way that did lead him to becoming a writer. Cops are nowhere to be found, I guess. Fucking police stations a lot more lenient back then than they would be today. Please put your shoe back on, man. Dan, that was sort of your first big makeup effect of the film. Even the use of like real bugs seems like a rarity because they'd be too afraid of, I don't know, getting up shit creek by certain groups that would be, you're torturing them, you're doing this and that, blah 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 blah. Well, he even admits he started hallucinating. So now with that shoe, like, if you think about if you were hallucinating, what did you do with that shoe? Did you smack someone in the face? She does look like a junkie. Flat out junkie. That's the thing, whenever you make a film like this, you're always going to have a hard time getting a big audience box office wise, because there's going to be a certain part of the audience that just want to see something a lot more straightforward, a lot more to the point, and less confusing. And when you're doing something this trippy and this weird, some people are going to be disgusted, some people are going to be confused, some people are going to be, oh, that's just stupid. So you're already limiting your audience, who they either see a trailer, they see marketing, and they go, I don't know about this. I mean, you think about a lot of the films that have become big hits, even at this time. You know, it's the films that seem much more palpable for a mainstream audience. Like, if I look up my phone, you know, the big hits of 1991, they would include films like Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Trying to think, was Robin Hood Prince of Thieves that year? Might have been. But, you know, films like this would just be a bit more weirding people out. So if you wonder what I'm doing right now, I'm trying to look for something. bud powder problem. That's the best way to put it. A bud powder problem. And here we got Roy Scheider. I'm sorry, I miss Roy Scheider. And it's cool to see like Peter Weller and Roy Scheider in the same film. Again, both actors I really do enjoy. And Roy Scheider just left us way too soon. Damn, sorry, way too soon. Now, of course, he's most famous for Jaws, but he's in a lot of other films. He was in The French Connection, Blue Thunder, a film called The Seven Ups. He would be in the 2004 Punisher film, which seemed like one of his last roles, sadly. And sorry about that, still getting over being sick. Not trying to score one over the poor doctor, are you? An agent has come to believe his own cover story, but who's in there, hiding, in a larval state, just waiting for the proper moment to hatch out. Supposedly this is cure for this hallucinogenic drug. I mean, there's a part of me almost just wants to read the plot so I can understand more about what it is. Exterminator William Lee finds that his wife is stealing a supply of insecticide as a recreational drug. He begins hallucinating due to being exposed to the insecticide. Lee comes to believe that he is a secret agent, and his boss, a giant talking beetle, assigns him the mission of killing his wife, who is allegedly an agent of an organization called Interzone. That's another, this bud motif, this weird centipede type of thing. Almost like these are clues to lead him on this journey. But also maybe it's a bit of a maybe after effects of the drug, or realizing that his wife might not be, maybe because his wife is a junkie, that's kind of making him think it's not really like his wife of before, because turn to a junkie may think you turn into a completely different person that you just don't know and can't fathom, can't recognize anymore. So there's her having sex with one of the writer friends. Pretty soon after, he's going to accidentally kill her while attempting to shoot a drinking glass off her head to emulate William Tell. Flees the Interzone, located in a city somewhere in North Africa. He spends his time writing reports concerning his mission, and then it's compiled into a book. He's addicted to mind-altering substances. So his typewriter becomes a talking inset. Pretty much by the end, he's welcomed to his new life as a writer, and our lead character has a tear at this bittersweet accomplishment. He became a writer, what he wanted to be, but at what cost? The shooting of Joan Lee is based on the 1951 death of Joan Vollmer, Burroughs' common-law wife. Shot and killed Vollmer in a drunken game of William Tell. He would later flee to... This was in Mexico City. He would later flee to the U.S. He was convicted of in absentia of homicide, sentenced to 2 years, which were suspended. Joan's death was the starting point of his literary career. I am forced to the appalling conclusion that I would have never become a writer but for Joan's death. %69% Rotten Tomatoes. Strange, maddening, and at times incomprehensible. It's nonetheless an engrossing experience. Roger would give it 2.5 out of 4. Entertainment Weekly gave it a B+. Peter Weller greets all the hallucinogenic weirdness with a doleful, matter-of-fact deadpan that grows more likable as the movie goes on. The actor's steely, robo-stare has never been more compelling. And there you go. Drunk. Bullet went the wrong way. Went the wrong fucking way. Good job. I was going to look up, like, the highest grossing films of 1991 were Terminator 2, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Beauty and the Beast, Hook, this is worldwide, The Silence of the Lambs, JFK, Naked Gun 2.5, The Addams Family, Cape Fear, and Hot Shots. I mean, 1991, that was also the year you had action films like Lionheart and Steven Seagal's Out for Justice, Double Impact. You had Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. You had What About Bob, Point Break, Fried Green Tomatoes, Drop Dead Fred, Boys in the Hood, The Rocketeer, New Jack City, The Doors, The Last Boy Scouts, City Slickers, Backdraft, Barton Fink, Star Trek 6, Undiscovered Country, Hudson Hawk, Critters 3, Child's Play 3, and more. This is a fantastic effect. Fantastic makeup effect here. Where pretty much telling him to go on his mission, you need to get the hell out of town, go to Interzone, and start your journey to do your reports, which combined will be a book and inadvertently make him be a writer. And maybe all the effects of the blood powder make him hallucinate this stuff that sort of leads him on this journey. maybe in reality he just bought this himself and it's him talking to his psyche to go on this journey. Again, just the puppeteer work and practical effects that just looks that looked really cool. I'll say that it just looked really cool. And another step in his journey of being a writer is buying this typewriter and selling off his gun at this pawn shop. And sorry about the lot clear of the throat because of it's hard to I don't know, I'm not the best when it comes to commentaries, I'll say that. Not by far. Because I guess you'll probably kind of run out of stuff to say, and I don't really know what else to say, but just somebody must like them, because I do requests for them from time to time. Escape from custody, huh? You see, you got his ticket. He thinks the damn drug is his ticket, alright. Ticket to paradise. And this guy doesn't know what the hell Interzone is. I think I remember David Cronenberg mentioning this whole totem thing is kind of a, I don't know, precursor to Doom or something. Report on the assassination of Joan Lee. Well, the unknown force is you and yourself. Back in the days when you had to use a typewriter, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know what the hell a typewriter is. Typewriter, you had to be very sure on what you were wanting to write. Because if you make a mistake, it's a pain in the ass to try to erase it. You can try, but I remember using a typewriter way back in the day, and it was, again, you had to be very particular. I'm sure there are people that still prefer that over a computer. To me, a computer is just much easier, much faster. You make a mistake, pop, easy fix, compared to a typewriter. But maybe a typewriter will make you a better typist because you had to be specific and you had to not make the wrong move. Dr. Benway, that's Roy Scheider's character. That's another thing about the 90s. You know, people give the 90s so much of a bad rap, and I've never understood that. You just say, well, Matt, of course you say that because you grew up in that era. I mean, by the time I was 7 years old, it was 1990, and that era was my wave into movies. and oh, here's that black powder, that cure, which is made from the guts of these big old centipedes. I mean, such a weird, unique idea and visual aesthetic. I give big props to the makeup effects for making this stuff. Very weird, but creative journey. Uh, Nah, I'll skip the taste test. Sort of him make believing that he's in this big old secret agent, double agent life that just makes things much more interesting than just I killed this lady because of a drunken game. So there must be more meaning to it. There's gotta be something deeper to it, right? Can't just be this simple drunken mistake, right? It's gotta be this big power play, and we're the important star of our universe and star of our own movie. But the black powder is just another addiction. Just a different drug. Don't get high on your own supply. Well, that's probably like the reality of the situation. Him shoot up needles, get high, and writing. Like that right there is probably the true reality of everything that's going on, and then his fantasy world starts opening up again. He's not really typing, the whole thing's typing itself. But I was mentioning the 90s. I mean, people always give credit to the 80s, and I love the 80s. Don't get me wrong, I love the 80s. Many of my favorite films are in the 80s. Aliens, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and Rambo 3. Another cool design. Look at that. That's such a cool design. This bug, but it's like a typewriter, and the puppeteer work, and just the design is just so unique and so cool to watch. But the 90s, again, where so many people give crap to that decade, and I just never understood why. You pick a genre. If you pick action films, I'd go from Hard Target to Cliffhanger to Demolition Man to Bad Boys to Broken Arrow to films like Independence Day, Twister, Volcano, like a variety of action films, from martial arts films to big set piece driven action movies, event films. 99 you had The Mummy, then you have other types of films. You have Pulp Fiction, you got Fight Club, you got The Matrix, you got I love the original Blair Witch Project. I mean the decade starts off with Jacob's Ladder, which to me is an absolute classic from 1990, and you got Exorcist 3, which is a damn good sequel, and you got Croissants aux Lambs, and get another that's weird sort of sexual perversion where the bud gets off on being fucking S&M shit, however you want to put it. I guess is also getting to this character's like sexual preference. I guess like, is he gay? Is he bi? All that jazz. I'm sure. I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly 100% what's going on as well, but it keeps me interested. It keeps me thinking. It keeps me intrigued. And like I said, it's still like a good-looking film with the lighting and the actors did their jobs well. Would like to have seen more Roy Scheider, but I'm just a fan of Roy Scheider. It's sad we don't get to see more of him. He does come back a little bit later on. And there's a girl that looks just like his wife, almost like a doppelganger. And we got another character actor, Ian Holm, on the other side of her. Ian Holm was the android Ash in the original Alien. Robot. Ash is a goddamn robot. He was also in The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis. And he's been in quite a few other films as well. But I would say those are the two films I remember him the most, is Alien and The Fifth Element. And yes, you're hearing my neighbor's roosters yet again, as is typical. But yeah, so many people give so much crap about the 90s, and it's again always dumbfounded me. Again, there's just so many great movies of that decade. That's why it's tough for me to say which I like more, the 80s or the 90s. Everyone always easily goes the 80s, but the 90s are just so underrated, and for me, I mean, I look at my childhood. The first two Ninja Turtle movies were the 90s. The I Come in Peace with Dolph Lundgren and Tremors and like I said, Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme and those type of movies, and Hard Boiled John Woo film, and then Cliffhanger, Demolition Man, horror. I mean, creature features. Creature features were very cool in the 90s to me. From Stephen King's Graveyard Shift to Death Machine to Deep Rising to The Relic to Split Seconds. I mean, plenty of creature feature films I loved and enjoyed and had a lot of fun with. And you get into the 90s of TV shows, whether it be The X-Files, whether it be Beavis and Butthead, whether it be the early days, I guess technically the 80s, but the sort of heyday of The Simpsons was in the 90s. And I would say I love the 90s as much as I love the 80s. I would put it that way. But the 90s, I think, gets a little bit of short end of the stick a lot of the times. Even with horror. Oh, horror was so bad in the 90s. What the fuck are people... I'm like, what the fuck are people talking about? Every year I can name horror films I grew up with and enjoy and love. I mean, 1990 The First Power, Lou Diamond Phillips, Exorcist 3, Child's Play 2, Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. This isn't horror, but sci-fi. Your Naked Lunch, very weird movie, and you have John Carpenter films like In the Mouth of Madness, and Wes Craven films like The People Under the Stairs and Scream, and but yeah, here we have Ian Holm now with Peter Weller. Just putting my phone away. A little bit back and forth between these two people. In a very weird, trippy way where he's talking but his lips are not in sync. And here's another recognizable actor, Julian Sands. Julian Sands, he was in Warlock. I also remember him from this movie, also in the 90s, 1990, Arachnophobia. So that was a year before this. He was a scientist at Arachnophobia. Oh my god, they got the good doctor. I know sometimes people get him confused with what's the one guy, Bruce Payne. But this is the guy who was, which funny enough, I think Julian Sands were in the first two Warlock films, and then Bruce Payne was in the third Warlock, so that probably didn't help that confusion. Pretty decent cast in this movie. Pretty decent cast. I'll try to do the best I can. I mean, there's about an hour left in the movie, but I'm not sure why Mike. I wonder if it's because of my review of Crimes of the Future that you wanted me to do a commentary on this, but Sorry, just listen, just look at the dialogue. To live and to bear my burden proudly for all to see. Fallen hemorrhoids fall down, wrapped around the wheel of the car. Gutted, leaving an empty shell. I mean, this when even this description causes a visceral reaction of just no, it would never happen in real life. But it does cause a visceral reaction that gets people either remembering it or thinking about it or giving them some type of emotion other than indifference, because that's really probably the worst feeling. It's not people getting pissed at you. It's not people getting angry at you. It's indifference. They feel neither joy or anger. They just turn the page, move on, and then forget about you. Yeah, you see these marks on his body, and you get the idea that maybe these are all the places that he maybe ingests his poison, his. See, the typewriter's not weird anymore. Yeah, I think it's these little moments of just him by his typewriter, and you see these markings that you see again. What's really happening is just this in this room. I mean, for all I know, who knows if he's even leaving this fucking room in reality. He could just be doing drugs, typing, doing more drugs, typing. What is his pain? What is his sexuality? Is he gay? Is he not gay? All this stuff. This weird centipede thing. Well, centipedes always did have such a unique look to them. An alien type of look to them. Obviously, if you don't like bugs, you might get a bit disgusted with this movie. I don't know what it is, like certain films like this, even though I get confused by it, it still intrigues me, but if you compare like a David Lynch film, like I just can't stand David Lynch movies. I just can't. I just not a fan of David Lynch. It's a hell of a pretzel. Hmm. I'm just crumbling all that damn pretzel. But I mean, it probably was films like Leviathan and this movie and Shakedown where these films did not do well, and Peter Weller wasn't really considered a box office guy, a box office star. And so, from what I understand, uh, there was a possibility that he might have done RoboCop 3, but he decided to do this instead, which I can't blame him because, what more can you do with RoboCop? Some would say all you need was one movie. I like the second film, so I could see, worked with David Cronenberg and doing something this interesting and unique and going for the fences, not having to worry about being in the suit, and you've done it 2 times already. I could see why he chose this over RoboCop 3. Plus, RoboCop 3 to me was a shitty story. Sorry, Fred Decker, it was a shitty story. Seem to be addicted to something that doesn't really exist. The life of an addict, especially hallucinogenic addict. Like I said, it definitely isn't interesting if you compare this with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That was much more of a sort of an energetic road trip journey, pie in the sky type of movie. This one, I don't want to say this was more mellow, but this one's much more, in a weird way, contained. Something to that effect. And it's such a weird scene, just a weird idea. One typewriter killing and eating the other. Again, what this all means, I don't really know for sure. I'm sure you could form your own opinion on it. To me, I'm kind of looking at just at the visuals and just very weird, crazy, maddening type of visual. And what it all means, I don't fucking know. I may not understand it fully, but it doesn't mean I'm not interested. Maybe because the visuals are just so unique and so interesting, they just pop out. And yeah, it also helps that I'm a big Peter Weller guy. I liked his deadpan delivery of lines. Doesn't mean I like every single film with Peter Weller, but I like a good chunk of them, especially in the sci-fi of Unknown Origin, Buckaroo Banzai, RoboCop, this Leviathan being my favorite. Streamers. I mean, I don't like Star Trek Into Darkness. Might as well be called Into Fartness. Just it fucking stinks. Not too bad of a looking place. There's something about the way it's lit and something about the color scheme. I don't know why. I even think it brings a certain like fall color, like warmth to it all. But yeah, I don't know if this film would ever have reached like a big audience. I mean, you think about the one of the few that did for Cronenberg, like Scanners, I could never get into. Scanners, I always thought was a bit overrated. I actually like Standard Cop and Standard Cop 2, Scanners the Showdown. I like those more for Scanners. I've never been a big Scanners fan. Like I say, Standard Cop was more my cup of tea. Is already wore like Shivers and stuff, like Rabid, The Brood. I could not get into The Brood. So I guess even like his more straightforward, like the Dead Zone and the Fly remake, were probably two of my favorite Cronenberg films. Dead Rainers was there for me. I don't think it was a bad film. Videodrome, that's one I haven't even mentioned yet. Oh, I did enjoy Videodrome quite a bit. Kind of like this, where they're both, not the easiest movies to understand, but they have a definite unique quality to them. Both still get high on this drug. Their hallucinations lend it take all to the forefront. Yeah, I didn't even figure out what the hell that's supposed to be. That's pretty fucking obvious. You can't really miss that fucking point. It's just a big dick. Sexual perversion, all that stuff. I'll pull up my hair when you take off your mustache. I just can't. So it's the housekeeper. Like what that thing's supposed to represent, I don't fucking know. Humpity hump, humperdink. Do the humpty hump. Air crash incident was a typewriter. So maybe you say it's the typewriter using the typewriter as a sense of love and perversion, the written word. The written word to turn someone on. How you want to put it. So you have two people getting high, using writing as maybe a certain foreplay, the written word. There are people, that read, dirty books and dirty writings and use that for their own pleasures and needs. So maybe that's sort of a take on that whole thing. And what this whole thing about having this woman that looks exactly like the woman he killed and the wife he killed. I mean, who knows, this woman even exists. He could be just talking to himself. He could be talking to his psyche. He could be talking to his guilt. Like the woman he accidentally killed, hoping that she's somehow alive. Keeping that hope alive. But realizing you just have to let her go to move on. Or maybe there's none of that at all. Ew. I mean, I don't know if this film needed to be an hour and 55 minutes, to be fair. Maybe there's like 20 minutes that could be cut down a bit. Because the pacing, is not really the most... Even for this kind of movie, not really the most exciting. There are a few times you kind of want to just hit the fast forward button. But... And some people may just watch this and just wait for the next makeup effect. And some people may enjoy this strictly for that. Report by William Lee on the black... I'm trying to read the rest. Item, the black meat concession in Interzone has been... I couldn't read it. So now he's applying it like that. Kind of like a nicotine patch. Just to absorb through the skin. Here you go. Not an act of free will on your part. So the shared responsibility. You had to do it. It wasn't your fault. And create this story, this concoction to alleviate guilt. An unconscious agent is an effective agent. And I pretty much showed you the saying about women are completely different from men. Well, because men are from Mars and women are from Venus, that's why. Out of this is supposed to showcase the importance of writing to other people that helps their grief or their inspiration or their stuff to be able to type and write and express themselves and how important that is. And using writing as sort of a secret agent lifestyle. Fuck them all, squares on both sides. And sorry about that. Animal was completely buried in that fucking sand pit. Might as well just cover yourself a bit more to be completely buried. How the hell did they get there? I mean, for all we know, he never fucking left, and he could still be in the city, just living in this beach and in a hotel room. I mean, again, he's so fucked up hallucinogenic wise. Again, he could have just been fucking living on the beach in the U.S., just put into a fucking motel room. And just a shitload of drugs. And that's where you kind of see the reality from their eyes. Like, these are two writers that are not using hallucinogens. So it's kind of funny, like, these are the guys who kind of see the truth. Like, the guy had a passport, he pulled out a fucking thing of drugs. His reports that he's been sending in is actually this whole book here. Because, I mean, think about it, if you're in such a big drug haze that you're in such a big hallucinogenic, who knows what the hell you're really doing compared to what you think you're doing. And I've never done drugs, I've never done hallucinogens. I can only imagine, though, that you're... I mean, I've seen interviews with people, even like Steve-O, you know, the guy in Jackass, Steve-O, he would tell stories about how he would literally see people walk through the room that weren't there, or he would be in a room and the room would turn to an elevator and go into a fucking dive, and you literally would see like a skyscraper full of rooms as his room became one big old elevator. People could live an entire life in a minute and they never got off their damn chair. Just not understanding any bits of what's really going on. Philosophy of drug use with artistic creative. So this stuff might not even be really happening. Like, he might be in this drug phase and he imagines he's by this bus, but really they're in the room and he's really taunting these people. But he's like, okay, good luck and finish your book, and they leave the motel room or whatever. Evil is waiting in live hearts of men. Bummer, stay in this fantasy world until you finish your book, and then come back and see us. I mean, for all we know, we're still in his fucking apartment, and he just goes from the or motel room, just goes down, sleeps on the beach, back and forth. I mean, for all we know, we're still in fucking America. He just imagines he's in this other country. He's just so fucked up on drugs, he thinks he's in another country. And like all this stuff, he's just really sitting in his room, sitting in the chair, typing up a storm. Or he could be typing right now, but he imagines himself on that fucking ground with his bottle. That's up to the viewer, I guess, to decide. I guess to look in a little bit into his book. An excerpt from Janet Maslin. Drifting in and out of a Kafka-esque reality. Not sure there's enough light in this room to read this. As it says here, he can't go home because of what happened with his wife, and broken beyond repair. If we fix the type of machine, we also fix the life. Instead of attempting the impossible task of adapting Naked Lunch literally, Mr. Cronenberg has treated the disjointed, hallucinatory book as a secondary source, concentrating instead on Mr. Burroughs himself, the drug experience that colors his writing, and the agonies of the creative process. Mr. Cronenberg also devises purely metaphorical versions of this author's wild and violent sexual scenarios. The result, by turns bracing, brilliant, and vile, is a screen style as audacious as Mr. Burroughs is on the page. Naked Lunch makes an instantaneous break with conventional reality and its opening moments and never looks back, centering on the adventures of Bill Lee, played by Peter Weller, as a droll, deadpan evocation of the author. The film begins with smallish bugs, then it moves on to even more huge, horrible, and intelligent ones. Bill works in New York City as an exterminator and sees even that as a metaphor. Exterminate all rational thought. This is the conclusion I have come to, he says. And this is sort of his fixed typewriter. Yeah, it's such a unique maybe it's sort of him being more comfortable being a writer, more comfortable in terms of writing, letting his thoughts out onto the page. Let me read the last part. Stay until you finish the book, but then come back to us, Bill's friends say about his sojourn in Interzone. But if the terror so slyly and sickeningly rendered in Naked Lunch is a representative, it's a miracle that artists ever survive the creative process to come home. So I have a thing on Burroughs himself. And this is take on David Cronenberg. Filmmaker documentarian Chris Raleigh was originally published in Everything is Permitted, The Making of Naked Lunch. So the doctor never really went to medical school. Even William S. Burroughs talks about the movie. He says, the movie hasn't come out yet. But Raymond Chandler was once asked, how do you feel about what Hollywood has done to your novels? He reportedly answered, my novels? Well, Hollywood hasn't done anything to them. They're still right there on the shelf. David Cronenberg's Naked Lunch is an ambitious and daring effort. I look forward to seeing it on the silver screen. And you say that's sort of his being in touch with his sexuality, so to speak, whether he's homosexual or bi, just really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But he's definitely more comfortable sitting next to a half-naked man on the bed and kiss him on the forehead. Oh, that's drilling the sands again. And this is a very weird monologue. Guy who taught his ass to talk. Just a very weird monologue. So I'm just listening to this. I mean, definitely a crazy as hell monologue. I mean, I don't know how else to put it than that. I do have to get a little bit more water to drink, so I'll be right back. I'll keep it going so it's not screwing up the timing of it all. So I'll be right back. Alright. Sorry about that. Yeah, I apologize because of my sickness, so I'm trying to keep a bit more hydrated. In a very weird, strange, sickening sight. Like, ugh. Well, I mean, not everything to be hunky-dory. There's gotta be a bit of drama, a little bit of danger, a bit of something to pop, so to speak. Again, if you're going to ask me what the whole thing with Julian Sands is, this big centipede thing and this other guy and what this, I can't tell you the whole deal and reason behind it. Yeah, I can't tell you for certain. Just fucking weird. But yeah, David Cronenberg, I mean, he's one of those directors that he did. There's some people that would not compare him. Oh, he's in is a different reign compared to John Carpenter and Wes Craven and such. But each of them have tried to do different things in different kinds of movies. I mean, even John Carpenter, you look at him, he's done sci-fi, romance with Starman. He's done martial arts kung fu with Big Trouble in Little China. He's done straight up action with Assault on Precinct 13. He's done different types of horror. H.P. Lovecraft type of horror within the Mouth of Madness. More that's different from Prince of Darkness, and that's different from Halloween, and that's different from John Carpenter's The Thing. So it has been like the same type. Then you have like sci-fi action where They Live. He's definitely done a variety of stuff. And then the same with And even like Wes Craven, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street is pretty different from Scream, and that's pretty. I mean, he tried different stuff with Music of the Heart and Swamp Thing. A writer lives the sad truth like anyone else. Now that the Mission Possible, this will self-destruct in 10 seconds. And that's the reality. Broken typewriter and some mangled pages. And again, this is all in the mind of a guy heavily into drugs trying to find his way to fully become a writer, or however you want to put it. Maybe it's him trying to have the, as your work is nearing an end, you have to sever all ties to that work. So this guy that he was with, that ties were severed by Julian Sands, big old centipede thing having his way with him, and then the old typewriter going bye-bye, and now this whole other Joan, maybe the last tie to sever to finish this and move on to another piece of work. Or it could be none of that. It could be fucking something else on the other side of the fucking moon, for all I know. But at least it keeps me interested in thinking. I know at some point Roy Scheider does come back into this. And it's such weird imagery. These things hoisted like cattle or something. Well, not even like cattle, but whatever you want to call it. Getting nice puppetry work on even that creature there, sort of. Yeah, and then sucking on that stuff. Wonder what that is. They're actually drinking. I don't know if it's orange juice or what the hell it is. Yeah, I'm sure people are like, what the fuck is going on? Even I'm doing it. I've seen this, more than once. I do remember this coming up where this is actually Roy Scheider underneath. I remember being like, what the fuck? Yeah, I always forget how little Roy Scheider's in this. He's only in two scenes. And I just, for Roy, is like, hey, I get to come in as Cronenberg. You get to do two scenes. And there you go. That's why I wish he was in this film even more. I mean, in fact, I think Roy Scheider could have played Peter Weller's role. I think Peter Weller does a good job. I think Roy Scheider would have been just as good in the role. I can't write without her. And this is probably why he shoots her at the end, because this act is what pushed him into writing, and in a way, this horrible guilt, this terrible thing that he did, will forever be the inspiration to write and continue to write. Because is what brought him to the dance, so to speak, in writing. I think that was one of the cops from earlier in the film. And in a way, this act of shooting this person, which got him to write in the first place, that caused anger, frustration, push, whatever, is what can cause him to write again and again. That memory. Because this girl really doesn't exist. About time for our will and tell routine. The memory, the ordeal, the start of his creative process. What continues writing journey again and again. And it made him become a writer, but it's bittersweet because of this drunken accident. As he says, he needs her to write. So he wrote one book at Naked Lunch, and this will, I don't know, be the second book or the third book or whatever it may be. Welcome to being a writer. And that's it. I mean, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I can perfectly understand why. I mean, this is a film I rewatch over and over again. I haven't seen this film probably for over 10 years, but Chris Walas, who worked on designs of The Fly with David Cronenberg, he directed The Fly too. Chris Walas worked on, I think, the first Gremlins movie. Very competent makeup effects guy. Peter Weller, deadpan and doing his job well. Granted, I wish Roy Scheider was in the film more. I think there's about 20 minutes that could be shaved off it. It's not a film I rewatch, but it's definitely an interesting movie that, you know, makes me think for a bit, and I still would put it in a higher. I would say my favorite Cronenberg film is still The Fly. Then I would go with Videodrome. And this is between The Dead Zone and this movie. The Dead Zone, sad ending, but that's, you know, based on the novel. Definitely much more straightforward. Good performance by Christopher Walken, and this one just a very unique, weird, trippy journey. So it just depends on your mood, but. And then I'll probably put like a history of violence if I did like a top 5. So Fly, Videodrome, this movie, The Dead Zone, History of Violence would be my top 5. Really, those are the only Cronenberg films I truly like. The others are like, eh. Existence, yeah. Dead Rainers, it's okay. But yeah, that's my commentary on Naked Lunch. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.